How's it going, guys? It's K Cars, and in this video we're going to be installing these brand new Auxbeam LED headlights on my 2001 Jeep Cherokee XJ, and we're also going to be comparing them to my current Quake LED headlights that I have on here right now. As you guys probably know, the stock headlights on these old Jeeps aren't very good, which is why one of the first things that I did to this thing whenever I got it was install LED headlights, and these are actually made by Quake LED. These were about $218, and I'm pretty happy with them, but my only complaint is that the bottom row of LEDs actually flickers when the vehicle is on. So I turned on the power to the Jeep right now, and you guys can see how the LEDs kind of flicker like that. It happens on both sides too. So driver's side isn't as bad, but obviously it still does flicker. I don't believe that the flickering issue is an issue with the actual headlights themselves. I'm thinking it could be an issue with the actual wiring in the Jeep just because it's so old. I did get replacement headlights to see if it would change, but they still flickered. So we'll see if after installing these Auxbeam headlights if it'll still flicker or not. And good news for you guys, if you end up wanting to get Auxbeam headlights for your Jeep as well, you can do so and get 10% off by using my discount code KCARS10. You can use the link down below in the description. Thank you to Auxbeam for sponsoring this video, and let's go ahead and get started with the install. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the driver's side here. I'm just going to put the Auxbeams on one side and leave the Quake LEDs on the other side just so we can do a good comparison like that. But pretty much this is pretty simple, so all you're going to need is a screwdriver, and there are two little screws holding on this whole headlight bezel right here. So there's one in the top corner and one on the other top corner right here. So we can go ahead and unscrew these first. Alright, so that came off pretty easily, and now we're just going to have to unscrew 4 more of these screws. There's a little metal holder that holds on the actual headlight here. It's held on by 4 screws, so there's 2 on top, so 1, 2, and then 2 more on the bottom, 1, 2 right there. There is 1 screw in the middle on the top, so you actually do not have to unscrew that to take the headlights out. It's just the 4, so 2 right here and 2 on the bottom. So once you get all the screws out, you want to make sure that the headlight does not fall out. You want to carefully take this little metal holder off first. So we got this part off, and now we can take the headlight out and disconnect it from the back here. So this should be pretty simple. All you have to do is disconnect this little connection right over here, and of course you want to make sure that you don't bang up the headlight right here, so want to be careful about that as well. Alright, so here's a little comparison between the Auxbeam headlight and the Quake headlight right here. I can tell the Auxbeam is a little bit heavier, so I don't know if that means that it's better quality, but we'll definitely do a good comparison whenever we install this thing. So yeah, I mean, they're basically the same thing, except the Auxbeam does have turn signals. So this bottom portion right here is actually an orange turn signal, and it also runs as a daytime running light if you want to wire it that way. I'm just going to plug it in like the plug and play portion with the 3 prongs right here. I'm not going to mess with the turn signal or the daytime running lights. I believe the Quake LEDs also do have daytime running lights. I think the bottom row of LEDs are actually daytime running lights, and I did not wire those in. There is a connection for them right over here. So that might be the reason why they're actually flickering, but we'll see what happens with the Auxbeam headlights once we put them in. So like I said, it's just a plug and play connection right here, and we're not going to be wiring in the turn signal or the daytime running lights, which is what these 2 extra wires are for. We're just going to be plugging in the 3-prong connection right here. Alright, make sure your wires are nice and tucked in there. Alright, that looks good. Now we can put this little metal holder on the actual light. right, now we can start screwing in the 4 screws that are on here. So one thing that I am noticing is that the actual, like the metal holder here it's not completely seated on the actual attachment right here. So just to give you guys a closer look here, what I mean is that you can kind of see that there's a space between the actual like holder here and the metal attachment that's screwing in. You can kind of see that little space right between there. I don't believe it was like that with the Quake LEDs, but we'll see how it goes. I'll see if it's like that with the other side as well. Alright, so I don't know if I want to make it any tighter than that, because you can kind of tell that the little headlight holder here, the metal part, is kind of bending as I screw the screws in. So what I'm going to do is actually just test out the headlight to see if it works first. Just going to turn it on here, and let's see what it looks like. Alright, so there we go. We have a little comparison there between the two. So, alright, so it seems like just the low beam is that light and the two on the side. But I'm guessing the high beam would be the bottom one. So let's go ahead and turn on the high beams too. Okay, so I can definitely see a difference just looking at the wall there. Alright, so just looking at it from here, the Quake LEDs definitely look a lot brighter in my opinion. And I mean, maybe we're just not looking at it straight on. I mean, if you look at it straight on, obviously it's pretty bright, but just like from my point of view here, you guys can probably tell on the camera as well, but the Quake LEDs definitely look a lot brighter than the aux beams. But if we look at the reflection on the wall here, you guys probably can't see it very well, but on the driver's side here where the aux beam lights are, the actual light beam is higher up on the wall than the Quakes are. So I think the high beams are aimed up a little bit higher, or maybe it's just because of how it's aimed like in the actual headlight assembly. But yeah, we can go ahead and see if they flicker now, I guess. We'll see what happens then. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the power to the Jeep and see what happens with the Auxbeam LEDs, if they flicker or not. Alright, so now neither one of them are actually flickering. So you can see the Quakes aren't flickering and neither are the Auxbeams. So it seems like it's pretty sturdy in there. I can't move it, there's no play or anything. So I'm gonna keep the screws at this tightness that they're in right now, because I don't really want to bend this little headlight holder any more than it already is. So now we're going to go ahead and put in the headlight bezel. There are 2 tabs here on the bottom. These 2 tabs, just make sure they're lined up here on the bottom. So you want to put in the bottom first like that, and then put it in like that. And now we can put in the 2 screws on the top. So here's a little comparison on how they look like with the lights turned off. Now, so we have the Quake LEDs on the passenger side and the aux beams on the driver's side. Now I'm just going to go over some specs on each of these headlights. So first off, for the aux beams, these are $95 without my discount code. So obviously, using my discount code, you can get 10% off of that. But retail price, like I said, $95 on auxbeam.com. And these are actually the Auxbeam part number QP007224. Obviously they worked on the XJs and a few other Jeep models. So the actual output on these lights on low beams is 3,240 and 4,368 on high beams. Now for the Quake LEDs, these are actually $218, so definitely a little bit more expensive than the aux beams. And on low beams, they put out 3,300 lumens. and they don't have a number for high beams, but they definitely do work very well, and I'm definitely impressed. But like I said, they are over double the price of the Auxbeams. Also for the Quake, I believe, like I said, I do think that the bottom row of LEDs are meant to be daytime running lights. I just do not have them wired up. Other than that, they work just like standard headlights, so no turn signals in that headlight. But when we come over to the Auxbeam here, these actually do have daytime running lights as well as a turn signal. This bottom part right over here, that's actually the daytime running light, and it's also the turn signal. You guys did see those two connections. I did not wire those up, but those are definitely there for you if you want daytime running lights or turn signals. And then your regular low beam lights are these two side markers as well as this big center one. And when you switch on the high beams, you get this little center one on the bottom right here to turn on. With the Quake LEDs on low beams, you get the bottom 4 and the center 3 right here. And when the high beams turn on, you get this whole upper section to turn on. So you guys can kind of see the difference in how they look. So this bottom section of 7 is low beams, and this top row right over here, that's going to be your high beams. Now let's go ahead and do the actual comparison and see how they look. It is getting pretty dark here, so it's going to be definitely a pretty good time to do a comparison on the Auxbeam LEDs as well as the Quake LEDs and see which one looks better. All right, let's go ahead and turn this thing on. All right, let's check again to see if they're flickering or not. All right, so no flickering. That's definitely a good sign. And like I said, the Quake LEDs were flickering whenever both of them were in there right now. But I guess now that it's like a different headlight, the Quake LED is no longer flickering and the Auxbeam is not flickering either. So that's definitely a good sign. Let's go ahead and switch on the low beams now and see what they look like. Alright, so from this perspective right here, I can tell that the Quakes are a little bit brighter. I don't know if that's just because of the angle that they're angled at, maybe. So I did notice that the daytime running lights are not turned on even though the low beams are on. I don't know if that's just because they're not wired, but I believe they were supposed to turn on with the low beams. Like I said, that's probably just because they're not wired up. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I think they look pretty good. We can take a step back here. Give you guys a different angle here. Yeah, so from this angle, at least on camera, it definitely does look like the Auxbeams are brighter right now. But when I stand up from this angle, the Quake LEDs look brighter. So it probably just has something to do with the angle. Let's get a side view here. Okay, yeah, so I mean, they both look good. I will say, I do think the Quake LEDs have more of like the LED color. Like they definitely do seem like they're more white. Let's get a view from this side here. All right, yep. So I mean, they definitely look good. Let's go ahead and switch on the high beams and get the high beams switched on here and see what they look like. And right away, if you look on the wall right there, you can see that the Auxbeam lights are definitely, like the actual beam is much higher than the Quake LEDs on the right side over there. So, okay, so once again from this angle here, the Quake LEDs look brighter, but if I crouch down, that's when the Auxbeams look brighter. So it's kind of hard to tell which one actually is brighter. On paper, the Quake LED is just a little bit brighter, but it's really not by much, so it shouldn't really be that noticeable. But it's probably just because of how they're angled, I'm guessing. Alright guys, so now that it's a little bit darker here, we can see a little bit of a better comparison between the two headlights here. So we can walk back a little bit and see what it looks like as the angle changes. So yeah, so right now you guys can see on camera, it looks like the Quake LEDs on the left are a little bit brighter, but if we walk down a little bit farther, it's probably going to change. So right now it's starting to look like the Auxbeams are more of a bluish color and the Quakes are more of a white color. And for some reason I feel like the color actually changes whenever you look at it from a different angle as well. So right now they both look white, same color, and they look like they have the same brightness as well. So yeah, I feel like the farther you get, the more similar they look, but the lower the angle, I feel like the Auxbeams look brighter, and the higher the angle, I feel like the Quakes look a little bit brighter. Yeah, so I mean right now, so right about here, this far, the Auxbeams look like they're kind of like a bluish or purplish color. And I walked up like maybe 3 feet and now they look like they're the same color, but the Quakes are much brighter at this angle. So now you guys can see from this angle, the Quakes are definitely by far overpowering the Auxbeams. So yeah, I mean, it really just all depends on the angle. All right, so now we have both of the high beams turned on, and we're also in a little bit of a different setting here, so we can see if the actual lighting changes here. So if I walk back, of course the Quakes look a little bit brighter right now. But as we keep walking down, like right around here, the Auxbeams are definitely much brighter than the Quakes on this angle. So I don't know how much of this you guys can see on camera, but right over here, the Auxbeams are easily overpowering the Quakes. And yeah, I mean, it's not really changing much as we keep walking down. The only difference, the only time that the actual Quakes are brighter is when we're up close, and that's with the high beams turned on. So like right over here is the angle where the Quakes start to become brighter.
Alright guys, so now that it's a lot darker than before, I can kind of do a better review of how it actually shows up on the road here. So of course on the left side we have the new Auxbeam lights, on the right side we have the Quake LED lights. So for the Auxbeams, I will say it kind of seems like it's more of a spotlight, and the Quake LEDs kind of look more like a floodlight. Like they kind of, I don't know, they kind of light up a wider area, but then the Auxbeams kind of go farther, maybe, if that makes sense. And then here you can easily see the cutoff line right there. And then for the Quakes, it kind of doesn't really have a line because it's more of a floodlight, like I said. So yeah, there's what they look like on the actual road. Now if I turn on the high beams, I feel the Quake LEDs are a little bit brighter when it comes to the high beams. So I mean, once again, there is a more defined cutoff point for the Auxbeams. Not sure how well it's going to show up on camera, but you can kind of see it's like right here maybe is the cutoff line, and then the Quakes, they do go out a little bit farther, but like I said, it's more like spread out, I guess. So there's low beams and there's high beams.